a lot of debate can be had when you look at betting lines, especially 9 months in advance. But it's fun to talk about and look at. And we reviewed them, at least the three that have been reported, three of Texas's biggest games for this fall, and they're just I can't believe these. I know exactly in which direction I would go, and maybe that makes a fool out of all of us when we think we've got Vegas beat. But LSU at Texas, of course, that I believe is the second game of the season, which I am coming out a little bit later, Steve, with my top 10 non-conference games of 2019. And I'm not going to spoil it for anyone, but that is extremely, extremely high on the list. LSU at Texas, I can't wait for this game. LSU is a 7-point favorite in Austin.
I can't believe it. 7-point favorite in Austin seems like a lot, but you have to look at LSU, and a lot of the SEC teams do well in those non-conference games early. I know a lot of people scream at SEC bias. I'm the biggest fan of the conference, but you have to them. They do well in those early non-conference games. You look last year, Auburn goes in, they beat Washington in a neutral site game in Atlanta, and then Washington ends up in a New Year's Six Bowl while Auburn goes 7-5 and goes to the Music City Bowl. So the SEC does really well in these non-conference games against premier opponents, and LSU has a good track record against it too. Last year, a lot of people expected the Miami Hurricanes. Everyone was saying the U is back, and they thought they were going to beat LSU. LSU just smashed them in Cowboy Stadium in Dallas, and LSU beat Oregon earlier this decade in a neutral non-conference game. LSU's done really well, but this time they'll have to go to Austin, and I'll have to say the atmosphere in Austin has really kicked it up and made it tougher for road teams in recent years. West Virginia was one of the few teams able to survive DKR last year, but it's going to be difficult for LSU to win that game. But they're a very solid team. I know Texas has a lot of hype because they finished last year beating Georgia in a massive upset, finished the season in the top 10 for the first time in a long time. And they have Sam Ehlinger returning, and Tom Herman's finally getting his recruits in and his recruits starting. And they had another great class this year, getting guys like Brew McCoy, Jordan Whittington, some 5 stars here, 5 stars there. So Texas has a lot of hype. But you have to remember, LSU is a great team too. LSU still has a lot of good returning players from last year's team. They are losing some good players to the draft, like Greedy Williams and guys on their defense. But LSU is still one of the premier programs in college football. They ended last year by defeating UCF, who had a 25-game win streak, a team that nobody was able to beat. I know they didn't have McKenzie Milton, but LSU was able to do it. They had a great offense in that game, which is something that LSU's had a lot of question marks with in the past, and they managed to put up 40 points in an all-around impressive showing that day. And LSU's entering next year probably in the top 10 as well. So it's going to be a good game. I just don't think 7 points is – 7 points, I think, would be a fair spread in Death Valley. I'd probably put the spread around 8.5 or something. But in DKR, maybe LSU by a field goal to 4. I think seven's a big spread for a game that's in Texas.
And so this is the way I look at it. Obviously, LSU could win this game by more than a touchdown. If we're just looking at one isolated football game, and that's all it's going to be, they're only going to play once. But this is based on probabilities. And the probabilities that if these two teams could march on the football field 100 times in Austin, that LSU would win these games by an average of 7 points every time out, I think is ludicrous. I don't even think this point spread is close. Now, of course, once they get on the field, it could be a great game. LSU could have a 3-point lead with 3 minutes left in the game, then score a touchdown that's somewhat meaningless and win 34-24. They win by 10 points, they cover the spread. Technically, they covered the spread, and that's all that matters. But a 7-point spread in a football game means that team is decidedly, I'm not going to say substantially, decidedly, that it's been determined by Vegas that they are decidedly better, like a 70 to 75% chance that they're going to win. And I just don't see that much separation between these two teams. And again, they will play here in one of the anticipated matchups of 2019, LSU at Texas, with the Longhorns early on here as a 7-point favorite.